necessarily just a feeling. You know, so I used to have this view of faith when I really feel it, and then I know I've got faith and I can accomplish stuff. Faith is a knowing. It's a knowing who God is. It's a knowing God's character. It's a knowing who we are as sons and daughters of God. And it's a walking in that faith, that knowing of who we are, regardless of what happens around us. It's a steadfastness in that. That's what faith is. You know, so many times we base so much on how we feel. I've heard people say this, well, I just want to be genuine. You know, I just want to be a genuine person. And so, you know, I came into the worship service and I didn't feel like worshiping God. And because I want to be genuine in my worship, I just decided I wasn't going to worship because I just want to be a genuine person. Well, guess what? Feelings are overrated. Feelings are very overrated. I mean, I don't know where it says in the Bible that we should worship God when we feel like it. I think we worship God because of who He is. And I don't know if you're like me, I find that when I choose something, when I choose to worship God, my feelings begin to follow my choice. I mean, I hardly ever feel like following God. I wake up in the morning, I just feel great today. I'm not a morning person. It usually takes me a little while to feel good about things, you know? But in that moment of choice where I'm choosing, am I going to live in the Spirit or am I going to live in the flesh? Am I going to let my flesh lead my life or am I going to let the Spirit lead my life? That's where my feelings, my will, my mind, all those things begin to line up with the will of God when I make that choice. So I just want to encourage you with that. You know, years ago, a friend of mine had a dream, and in this dream, they saw a church, and the church was going through a hard time. The church was going through a hard time, and it was in a worship service, and in the worship service, when she panned into this worship service in her dream, it just looked difficult. Like people were having a hard time worshiping. It didn't even really sound that great. You know, it's just people like just struggling to worship. You know, I don't know if you've ever been in those times. Some of you worship leaders have been in those times. You know, but in her dream, she pans into heaven and she has a picture of the Father weeping. And the Father says, "Look at my children worshiping me." And she says, "What do you mean? It's terrible." You know, in the dream, she's having this conversation, right? And the Father says, "You don't know what they've been through, and they're still choosing to worship me." Wow. See, that's faith. And that is true worship. It's not always the emotion. I love the emotions. But sometimes it's just a choice. God, I don't understand why this happened. I don't understand why I prayed and this happened. But I know that you're good. And I choose to worship you. With all my heart, as best as I can, I come to you and I worship. Because we worship in spirit and in truth. And truth is who He is. Awesome. Well, none of that is in the notes. So we better get to the notes, so we're going to run out of time. I don't know. I hope you guys like humor. David, do you have that on the page? He asked to read it during worship, and I never got it back. By the way, this is my son David, my oldest son. He's awesome. It's a quick story about David. When he was just learning to read very little, I came out one time, 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and he had just learned to read. He's out reading his Bible. And I'll never forget that time. I thought, wow. And here he is, you know, young, just had a love for the Word. And I'm blessed to have 3 wonderful children. My wife couldn't be here today because she had to pick up my aunt at the Seattle airport. My aunt's not a Christian, so she flew into your church. But anyways, we're excited to spend time with her. And my wife is there, but she sends her greetings. So her name is Jana. She's amazing. We've been married 17 years, and it just keeps getting better because we've been through so much life together. And so we have so much to talk about. But I like insurance jokes. The reason I like insurance jokes is because people that fill out insurance claim forms have just been through a very stressful situation. They've been through a car accident. They've been through something stressful. And so they write the funniest things on their, response forms that talk about the accident. They write just some of the funniest things because they've just been really traumatized or stressed out. And so some of their comments are just hilarious. So I just want to read a couple of these to you. These are true statements from insurance claims. Okay, these really were said. The car in front of me stopped for a yellow light, so I had no choice but to hit him. Coming home, I drove into the wrong house and collided with a tree I don't have. I pulled away from the side of the road. I glanced at my mother-in-law, and I headed over the embankment. I thought my window was down, but I found out it was up when I put my head through it. As I approached the intersection, a stop sign suddenly appeared in a place where no stop sign had been before. I was unable to stop in time to avoid the accident. In an attempt to kill a fly, I drove into a telephone pole. I was joking before on this. They should have fly insurance. Extra $100, on your policy, fly insurance, All right. I pulled into the side of the road because there was smoke coming from under the hood. I realized there was a fire in the engine. So I took my dog and smothered it with a blanket. Don't ask me to explain that. I'm still trying to figure that out. Did they smother the dog because they were panicked, or did they use the dog to smother the fire? I don't know. I'm not sure. I had been driving for 40 years. 40 years. When I fell asleep at the wheel and had an accident. You'd fall asleep too if you've been driving for 40 years. I knew the dog was possessive about the car, but I would not have asked her to drive it if I had thought there was any risk. I assume he's talking about his wife or his grandmother, but he put the dog in the same sentence, so I don't know. Okay, last one here. The accident happened because I had one eye on the truck in front, one eye on the pedestrian, and the other on the car behind. We have a three-eyed driver. All right. Today I want to talk to you about the weapon of love. Years ago, I was witnessing to a girl. It was actually in Mexico, and she was actually an American girl that was working there. And we got in this conversation, and she said to me, "Why would I ever want to become a Christian?" She said, "You guys can't even love each other, much less love the world." And it just floored me. In fact, for months after that, I wrestled. I really did. I wrestled with that comment. And I thought, Lord, you deserve to be represented rightly on this earth. You deserve that people know how loving you truly are. And that started me on this journey of God, help me to know how to love others as I know that I am loved myself. If you have your Bibles, and I think we're going to put the verses on the board. 1 John 4:8 in the New King James. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. God's very nature is love. God's very essence is love. God will never change